4th chapter, verses 1 through 12, and it's page 1642 in your Pew Bible. And I'm going to tune into Bob. On the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling white clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again?" Then they remembered his words, and returning to the tomb, from the tomb they told all 11 and all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Will you say with me the prayer for illumination that is found in your bulletin? Guide us, O God.
Open us, O God. Enable our ears to hear and our brains to think, discern, and imagine. Help us to notice where you are moving in the ancient story, in our community, and in our lives. Amen.
Well, what did you expect? My college roommate Laura says it to one of her 6 children when they've been poking and annoying each other so long that one of them finally gets shoved. My fellow pastor Jeremy, who is also an addiction counselor, says it when one of his clients has a relapse after returning to people or places that were bad influences. My friend Matt yelled it at the TV this week during NCAA playoffs when a player responded in rage after being called out on a particularly blatant foul. You and I may well say it ourselves tomorrow if we wake up feeling less than great after overindulging in Easter treats today. Well, what did you expect? Luke's story of the resurrection begins with expectation. The women, Luke tells us, the ones who had been traveling with Jesus since Galilee, the ones who had watched in horror as Jesus was tortured and executed, the women set out on that first Easter morning loaded down with spices and ointments that they had prepared and which they expected to apply to Jesus' dead body to prepare it for burial. Then they arrive at the tomb and find the stone rolled away, which, well, it's pretty handy because they didn't need to get in there. But Jesus is gone, which they did not expect. They're confused and dazed by this development. They don't know what has happened, and then suddenly 2 men in dazzling white clothes appear and ask them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" Or put another way, well, what'd you expect? Why do you look for the living among the dead? It's a curious riddle of a thing to say in the wake of such great loss. Of course, no one would look for the living among the dead. But the women did not come looking for the living, they came looking for the dead. They expected to find the reasonable thing, the thing that their experience in the world had taught them to be true, that when someone died, well, they most likely would stay dead. But Jesus upends this expectation, trading in their learned logic for a miraculous and impossible event. Well, what did you expect? Like those women who came early to the tomb looking for the dead, we expect what we have learned to expect, based on our experiences, based on logic, based on the way we understand the world to work. We expect people to let us down. We expect to be disappointed. We expect to hold grudges and for grudges to be held against us. We expect shame and guilt, and yes, we even expect death. We call these expectations street smarts, or things that we learned from the school of hard knocks, or simply being realistic. Come on, what'd you expect? That's life. Or, well, is it? As we gather this morning to celebrate life, is that really all that we expect? The first reading that we heard this morning was the words of God to God's people through the prophet Isaiah. And if ever there were a group of people who had been through the school of hard knocks, it was them. This people who had been kidnapped and taken away from their homeland, held captive in a foreign city, who had watched their homes and their cities and their temples destroyed. They once had expectations, I'm sure, but by the 65th chapter of Isaiah, I bet many of their expectations were getting adjusted. They had come to expect that they would not be rescued, that they would not return to their homes. They were just being realistic until God stepped in and asked them exactly whose reality they were clinging to. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy, and its people as a delight. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They will not build and another inhabit. They will not plant and another eat. They shall not labor in vain, or their children for calamity. Before they call, I will answer. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. If we let ourselves believe, if we allowed ourselves to get swept up into the power of the resurrection, what could we expect? The possibility that anything can be made new. Joy, delight, life, satisfying and productive and fair work, peace, relationships of love even between enemies. Well, what did you expect? Certainly not this. The resurrection is so unexpected that it knocked everything a little bit off kilter, and the effects reverberate through time and space, continuously transforming all of the created world, so that even today we experience it. Because when we expect blame and guilt, God meets us with forgiveness. When we expect poor treatment, God meets us with love. When we expect to find hatred, fear, pain, and loss, God meets us with welcome, healing, peace, and joy. When we expect that our options are up, God meets us with hope. When we expect death, God meets us with life. The message of the resurrection is that God can redeem any situation, any person, not even death, can stop God from making something new and triumphant. And how many of us expect that? This new message is strange, unfamiliar. It contradicts our experience, our logic, our soundest judgment. And yet, Christ is risen. Christ is risen. Love has triumphed over sin and death. It's as outrageous and crazy an idea as ever, as it was that first Easter when the women returned to tell the other disciples what they had found, and those guys responded to them in the Greek colloquial vocabulary, that their story sounded like a pile of you-know-what. How can there be so much freedom, so much healing, so much love and life that is available to us? We've been taught all along that it's totally nuts, and even if it isn't, it's for later, after our lives are over. But in the end, the resurrection is not only the promise of life after death, but also the assurance that the life-giving love of God will always move the stones away. Well, what did you expect? Friends, I invite you to participate in a little experiment with me. What if we tried adjusting our expectations just a little? Expecting mercy and healing, joy and hope, kindness and friendship. Could it be that we might notice these things a little more often than we had before? And could it be that once we begin to notice them, we will find ourselves participating in them a little more than we did before? Because the resurrection did not happen once a long time ago for a future that is a long way away. It happens now, and it matters now. It always happens, and it always matters. May you find yourself on this Easter day so swept up in its power that, like Peter, you run to the tomb and sit amazed. May you find yourself this Easter day so swept up in the power of the resurrection that you begin to feel the stone-sealed tombs within you crack open. May you find yourself today and every day so swept up by the power of the resurrection that you begin to expect it everywhere. Amen.
Amen.